Hey everybody, welcome back to Jay's Down the Football Podcast. I'm your host Jay and Gay, and today on the podcast I want to hear with Will McFadden. He's the host of the Believe in Falcons podcast, which you can find on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your favorite podcasts. Before we get started, guys, please make sure you like and comment, subscribe. We're here on YouTube, just providing the best NFL, college football, and high school football content out here. So make sure you give us a view on YouTube. But Will, I appreciate you coming on with us today, man, talking some Falcons football and seeing where this franchise is headed next.
Yeah, hopefully headed in the right direction. But yeah, happy to hop on here and chat about the Falcons.
Yeah, man, we hope. Will, obviously 2021 for the Falcons. They went 7-10. New regime, new head coach, new defensive coordinator, basically new staff. Things didn't, obviously exceeded expectations. Obviously the team though changed during the offseason some. Obviously Matt Ryan was traded away to the Colts. The team was in a battle for Deshaun Watson. A lot of things have happened over the offseason since 2021 ended, but now we are sitting at the midpoint going into the 2022 season, about to start training camp pretty soon. But overall, man, looking back at the draft of the Falcons, how do you think they did as far as, was it a good draft, bad draft, just right? What do you think about the Falcons' past draft this year in 2022?
Yeah, I think that they came out of it wanting or getting what they wanted going into it, which is they addressed the offense at number 8 with wide receiver, which because of the Calvin Ridley suspension, the Russell Gage free agency departure, became kind of the biggest need. Now, I think a lot of people, myself included, wanted edge rusher at number 8, but it's clear once Thibodeau went off the board and then you saw Jermaine Johnson kind of slide down the first round, teams may have felt a little bit differently about this edge rushing group and their value than the public did, and even, a lot of the draft media. So the Falcons got their first choice of receiver off the board, and they went that route instead of going with the 4th kind of edge rusher off the board. And I think that in the second round, they were able to really still get an edge rusher in Arnold Ebiketie, who has a lot of upside. He has some really good pass rushing moves combined with the athleticism. He's going to have to develop a little bit more. He mainly has an outside to inside move and vice versa, but he's going to have to kind of work on his hands a little bit. But the upside is there for him to probably be like an 8 to 10. I don't know if he's going to evolve into your pure number 1 edge rusher, but he can definitely be your number 2. And the Falcons just need to kind of stack talent at this point on their roster. And then outside of that, they took a lot of athletic guys, especially on defense. A lot of your Troy Andersons, even Desmond Ridder. He's athletic. He's just that type of player. And so I really like what they did. D'Angelo Malone is going to be able to slide in kind of as a pass rushing guy, I think, from day one, and we'll see how they want to develop him. But they hit some clear areas where they needed to get better. They got better with Drake London, certainly kind of like a very unique talent and somebody who we've seen have success, a player like him have success in the NFL. So It can translate, they hope. But I think Falcons came out of this with everything that they wanted to get at some point addressed. And now, we'll see what they can do with it. They're going to know for a few years here how this draft looks, but coming out of it, I feel pretty good.
Yeah, me too. I like you said, I thought that a lot of people thought the Falcons were going to go with an edge rusher at 8, or some even thought an offensive lineman that early, which, if
that was more about the talent, I think, of the players in this draft than
right. Yeah. And obviously they went with Drake London at number 8, which, he's a big body type of guy, which it seems like the Falcons are trying to make that receiver room kind of look kind of big and, possession type receivers. It's what it seemed like. They went and got Alden Tate out of free agency. He used to play with the Bengals. I think he's about like 6'5". Obviously, you got Kyle Pitts at 6'6" at tight end, who you can slide into the slot wherever, in and out. And, and they go and get Drake London, and just a few days ago traded for Brian Edwards, right? So from the Raiders, he's got good size. So something Arthur Smith is trying to establish in that wide receiver room. we'll see how it looks. But overall, I think the draft was good. You know, they picked up the guys they wanted to get. Obviously, you needed a franchise quarterback after you traded away Matt Ryan to the Colts. Even and you know, when they were involved in the whole Deshaun Watson saga, which you know I didn't have a feeling that the Falcons were going to come out with that with anything. I just wasn't confident in that because you know, but they were in there. Let me ask you this real quick, Will. Were you shocked about that, or were you surprised when the Falcons were announced as one of the teams trying to get Watson? Did you think they had any chance of pulling him?
I was definitely surprised that they were one of the. I guess I wasn't surprised that they were interested in him. I was very surprised it became as public as quickly as it did, and that everything seemed very rushed. And then the way, kind of in the aftermath of everything, the way that Arthur Blank in particular kind of said, well, we were doing our due diligence to have a meeting or you know, a phone call or whatever. Just the fact that that was right at the wire, there's no chance that was all that they were doing. So I was very surprised it happened. I don't love that it happened. Obviously, the results were that he ended up going to Cleveland, and Matt Ryan is now in Indianapolis. So I think it's hard to say the Falcons came out as anything but losers in that attempt.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just was not what you wanted.
Yeah, no. Even though Deshaun, as we all know, he hasn't played
on the field. He's a great quarterback.
Yeah, generational talent.
You can't separate, everything. You can't separate all of it.
Yeah, you can't. He is a generational talent. There's no doubt about it. Obviously he's got the situations going on. That's the only thing that kind of was, like going throughout my mind throughout that whole process. It's like, well, even if we do get him, it's like he's going to be suspended for like 7, 8 games. And then he hadn't played in about a year. It's all that type of stuff. So we'll see.
It would just be very weird to go from the Vic era to Matt Ryan, and then from Matt Ryan to Deshaun Watson. Like that's such a coming full circle type of move that's what was so head scratching about it.
Yeah, definitely. But overall, man, they selected Desmond Ridder to eventually replace Matt, step in as a franchise QB soon, and I think it was a good pick. A lot of those quarterbacks, Kenny Pickett went in the first round. He was the only quarterback, I believe, selected in the first round as he went to the Steelers. But, a lot of those quarterbacks lasted a long time. Matt Corral, Malik Willis, Desmond Ridder. Even though a lot of people thought Malik was coming here, hometown kid, and they thought the Falcons were going to get him. But the Falcons kept mentioning that he didn't have like in those signature moments, he didn't have that kind of experience, I don't know, the moxie, I guess you could say. But because now the upside is there completely, I feel like, for Willis and Desmond Ridder also. It's just a few technical things, accuracy, his mechanics in the pocket, which are things that he will improve with over time. But as far as, coming in right away, people thought Malik was going to be the guy, but that wasn't the case. Now moving forward, man, to 2022, how do you think the team can use this past 2021 season? They went 7-10. Cordell Patterson was electric, awesome for the team. So those good moments and the bad moments from last season, how do you think they can use that, propelling themselves into 2022 and beyond to better the team?
Yeah, I think specifically my mind first goes to the defense because we saw a lot of departure on the offensive side of the ball over the last 2 years, if you want to kind of roll it all the way back to the beginning of this with Julio leaving. So the identity of this team for so long has been offense. And it's been, can you put up 30 plus points in a game and then feel really good about winning it? That's kind of the way that Dan Quinn built that defense, was really to protect leads and turnovers and play when you're putting the pressure on another offense to throw the ball. That's kind of what they wanted to do. And when you couldn't do that consistently, you got in trouble. I think that Falcons really invested some in their younger guys, but then they kind of gave other players like a Richie Grant, like a Tyquan Graham, like, some of these
Darren Hall,
younger corners that they've had. They gave them some opportunity to get on the field, but a lot of time to just grow in this first year. And I think that the veteran presence that they had last year with players like Eric Harris, Ron Harmon in the safety position, but then, even guys just up front, bring in a Darren Bates at linebacker, but is more mainly a special teams ace. These types of moves, I think the Falcons did to really invest in the locker room, build that type of mentality. And I think we are going to see that most on the defensive side of the ball. So the experience that a lot of those young guys got, coupled with the specific, I think, learning opportunity that they got, they didn't have to do too much on the field, but they were getting all of this learning throughout the week. Mm-hmm. I really look for that to pay off this next year. I'm not saying everybody's going to take an AJ Terrell type of leap, but
that's different.
But with him leading the way, that's going to be great. And then offensively, I just think the offensive line, I know that a lot of people had an issue with them last year. And I did too. There's no ducking from that. But the guys who were the biggest issue were Jalen Mayfield and Matt Hennessy, who were right there on the interior, right next to each other. They played every game. And they played every game next to Jake Matthews and on the other side, Chris Lindstrom. And that type of cohesion and consistency is really rare for the line. So I think the experience that the young guys got last year is what the coaching staff is banking on, especially on the offensive line. And that's why I think you're not seeing a ton of high-profile moves on the offensive line. I think they want to see what competition does, what another training camp does for a player like Jalen Mayfield or Matt Hennessy, get Drew Dahlman in the mix, and just kind of, I know Falcons fans hate to hear this, but see what you've got in-house. And then next year with free agency money, if they need to fix the offensive line, I think they'll be able to next year.
Yeah, because I think in 2023, the Falcons are going to have a lot of money in the cap space, if I'm correct.
Oh, yeah.
So hopefully that is addressed. But, I just believe that the going back from last season, those experience those younger guys got, moving forward into 2022 is going to help the team out a lot, especially defensively. Offensively, of course, just getting those receivers mixed in, which I think is, like I said, it's going to look pretty interesting with that bigger group out there. So I'm interested to see how Arthur Smith is going to integrate those guys in there. Other than that, I think the Falcons, it's going to be a very entertaining season next year, I believe. That's the way
it's going to be entertaining, but it's going to be ugly.
Ugly, but
yeah, exactly. It's going to be. But you mentioned. See, this is what is fascinating to me about the upcoming season, because I think the receivers are a perfect example. Everybody's sitting here fixating, on the fact that everybody's tall. But I think that what people are missing is a lot of these players are also really long and have huge catch radiuses. One trend that I think we've seen in recent years is kind of this hybrid defensive player. Kyle Hamilton was this person this past year. Isaiah Simmons, kind of a couple years ago, just this, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, who went to Cleveland last year. Yep. These really long 6'4", 240, 235 safety linebacker type players. Yeah. Defenses haven't figured out how to use them yet. I think Arthur Smith is kind of betting on that being an area where defenses are falling behind a little bit. Can he take advantage of that this year with length on offense? Because teams are going to have to choose. Either do you try to create a size or a speed advantage for the defense, which usually gives the offense a size advantage, or do you try to match size, which now the Falcons have the athleticism, I think, even with their bigger guys, to go up against their bigger kind of defensive package, because we haven't seen the athletes who are supposed to be these tweener hybrid guys who can cover your tight end or who can cover your number one receiver. Those guys haven't necessarily panned out in the NFL yet. So there's a little bit of a glitch here that I think the Falcons are maybe trying to exploit, where if we just overwhelm you with length and size, that you don't have enough to match up against that. And if you do try to match, we're taking you out of your element of how you want to play by forcing you to match up with us. And, if you don't have the talent to really beat anybody playing your style of ball, change up and see what is something that they can't necessarily cope with well. And from that standpoint, I think it's a really interesting strategy that the Falcons could end up deploying. That's not, I'm not saying that that's what they're going to end up doing, but if they are, then I think it's really smart.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, there is a growing income of those type of hybrid guys coming to the league. Every year it seems like, and like you said, the teams just they're not figuring out how to use them correctly yet. But once they do, I mean, these guys are going to be studs. So it's just a matter of the Falcons. I believe they're one of the few teams that does have some upper legs here. Right, and I think, and obviously, Kyle Pitts is going to take a huge leap. I mean, the dude had 1,000 yards receiving his rookie year.
And nobody's talking about him.
Exactly. So you can only imagine how as the years go on, as he will grow. And I mean, it's no telling. The sky's really pretty much the limit for the Falcons here. It's just the defense is just something that over the last it really has killed the team. Because you look at the offense. Over the last couple of years, it hasn't been perfect, but it's been doable enough for us to win games. It's just you can't give up these leads. That's the only thing. So it's just the defense, protecting the sticks. I'm not giving up the big plays, right? Can't give up the big plays, especially over the middle of the field. That's where the Falcons have struggled recently. Those big third down pass plays over the middle of the field. I mean, the Falcons have been last in the league covering the pass for a couple of years now. So those things have to change moving forward for the Falcons to win games. And I think, the secondary is looking much better this year. They got, Casey Hayward, right?
Yep.
Free agency, and
huge signing. I love that signing.
And adding him with AJ Terrell, of course, who had a Pro Bowl year. Well, he should have had a Pro Bowl year because but they snubbed him, man. It was ridiculous because he was amazing the whole year. But yeah, it's just the defensive line still needs some improvement, but I think that's going to progress over the next couple of years.
And I think also too another huge difference when you asked what from 2021 could be carried over to 2022. We were talking about a team coming off of 2020 that blew every conceivable lead in the world, found new ways to lose. In 2021, all 7 of their wins were one-score games, and a lot of those were kind of in these late fourth quarter. Either the Falcons had to get a stop and then score on offense, or they had to get a stop to prevent the other team from scoring. And they found ways to do that. And I think that is a real identity that the Falcons are trying to build. It gives younger guys Imagine being a guy like AJ Terrell and your rookie season is just, you're losing every game in the weirdest possible way. And you're thinking, is this like my life in the NFL? Is this what the NFL is?
You hope not.
And then you come back next season and you learn to win these games. And now you know what it takes to win these close games. And you're coming into this season knowing that in your back pocket. And so I think that's going to be a really real and tangible effect that we aren't going to know until we see it on the field. But if they're in close games next year, I don't think this team is going to be afraid or certainly backing down from the moment. And that's a skill I think they had to learn over the course of last year.
Yeah, definitely, man. Definitely. Because 2020, obviously, you had leads against the Cowboys, the Bears. They blew those games. The
Lions. They lost to the Lions.
Yes, and the Lions as well. Todd Gurley, thank you. But I mean, it's as you said, the way that they were able to win those close games, even going down to one of the loudest places to play in New Orleans in the Superdome and to get that win. I mean, that pass to Cordero on the sideline, like
it's huge.
Huge. So stuff like that. I mean, I think they can build on that moving forward. There's those like the confidence and the competitiveness, like that Arthur Smith is trying to preach to these guys moving forward. Like he's the type of coach, like, hey, no matter what's going on, we're going to keep fighting the whole game. It's okay. It's for example, it's 24-17. We're down. We're 17. We're losing by 17-24. Are you guys gonna keep fighting, or are you just gonna give in? It's 3 minutes left in the fourth quarter. We got to go score. That type of deal. So I think it's just building that confidence and the competitiveness in this locker room. I think is going to be key moving forward for the Falcons. But yeah, man. Overall, I think the Falcons are headed in the right direction. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, I at least think if we're looking at this longer term, I think they're laying a good foundation. My expectations aren't sky high for 2022.
And
I think I predicted like 6-11. And a lot of that has to do with schedule. I mean, this could be a much better team, I think, this year than last year. It's just a hell of a slate. So
it's going to be, yeah.
But this league changes every year, and a team that we all expect to be really good. We're all sitting here talking about how the Browns now could be, if Deshaun's playing, they could be Super Bowl contenders. He may play and they may still end up going 6-11. It's
Right.
like that's just the NFL. So
Sure is,
I hope
man.
I hope the Falcons are this year's Cinderella team.
Who knows? You know, we never know. Like you said, any given Sunday. So, but that wraps us up for the podcast today, Will. Appreciate you coming on, talking some Falcons football with us. Please make sure you guys are checking out Will's podcast, the Believe in Falcons podcast. Him and Ovi Mahaley, former Falcons fullback, they chop it up all the time. Great content. You know, check them out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, where you get your favorite podcasts. And please make sure you guys are liking, subscribing to our channel here on YouTube, Jay's Fifth Down. I'm your host, Jay Gay, here again with Will McFadden, host of the Believe in Falcons podcast. Thank you all for watching and stay safe. Right, Will?